Okay, hi, good evening. So I'm going to start today's class. I think that most of you had some problems. It's going to be hard for you to attend classes. Well, it's important then that you can watch this video. All right. You know what we're doing, right? We're working on yes. We're still working on writing tips on exercises to improve our writing skills. In general, we finish with everything that is important in terms of structure. We finished everything in terms of punctuation rules, transitional words and phrases, and I helped you a little bit right with the idea of what a complete idea is going to be, etc. So that's kind of done. But what we're doing now, you know that we need to follow at least 6 or 7 tips that we have to make our writing skills right even better. And for this type of essay, which is the argumentative essay, the persuasive essay, this is going to be very important. So with that mentioned, let's go to work, all right? But before doing it, I'm going to remind you, please, it's important that you can start working on your essays, right? I told some of you that you can come today and you can show me something, right, that you're working on. It was optional. All right, perhaps you're going to join the class later on, but if not, again, take that into account that you need to follow the same criteria. And I always read the criteria with you in class, so it's important to do it. I'm just going to remind you very quickly, all right, what you need to do for Monday. As always, you need to complete the in-class activities, right? The things that we always do. It means that you should work on the 9 words, right, for the vocabulary with the definition in English. You should show me that you worked on the classwork file that we have. It means the 4 units. And you know that this time we were working with like reading the essay, right, without any punctuation marks, and you were supposed to set the punctuation marks where they were supposed to be. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to take into account. And also, as a second thing, you were able to analyze the essay, the complete essay. I right, I gave you some colors, and you were supposed to tell me, right, if this essay was following the tips that we're learning, contractions, right? To be concise, it means to avoid long sentences. In terms of the vocabulary, right? To be concrete, to go straight to the point. Don't use metaphors. Don't use these words that are too confusing. And we saw some words. Again, we're going to go to that point again, and I'm going to explain to you why perhaps we can avoid those words and why it's also good to use them. And that's it, all right? That's what you work with me. So that's what I'm going to be checking and the file. So those things, the vocabulary and those activities that you did with me in class. That's it. That's the first thing in terms of in-class activity. And finally, you know, the final essay. The big difference is that this is 400 words, right? Please don't forget that. It's 400 words. Everything is the same in terms of punctuation rules, transitional words and phrases. Remember, at least six. Some of you, right, did the same mistake. The second essay and the third essay, you worked something very good, but you were not able to use these transitional words. You're using less than 6 transitional words, and that's why your ideas are sometimes not very well connected. Okay, so it's important that you can use these transitional words and phrases. Only 6. I showed you that in average, you can use up to 10, 11, but only 6, all right? The structure, you know, the steps for the introduction. Please, let's work on that way. I know that there are many ways of working with introductions, but for academic essays, right, and for this argumentative and persuasive essay, we need to follow the steps that we know. Apply the writing types, okay, and then that's it, right? I already mentioned the number of words that you need to write. Just to be clear, again, for some of you it was not clear, for this third essay, the essay structure. So it means that when I say the introduction, body paragraph, and the conclusion, you know that each of those parts, all right, each of those parts has its own number of steps. For example, the introduction has 3 steps, right? You know, the first complete idea is the hook, the second complete idea is the background, and the third complete idea is the thesis statement, right? 3 steps. 5 steps for each body paragraph. And please know it's important that you write 2 body paragraphs, okay? 2. So each body paragraph is going to have a first complete idea, that is the topic sentence. The second part, that is going to be the introduction of the evidence. The third is going to be the insertion of the evidence. You need to copy and paste the words. Please, that it's important to do that. That's why you need to work with quotation marks, okay? Don't paraphrase yet. You have to copy and paste, okay? You must copy and paste the author's exact words. And after you do that with quotation marks, of course, right, telling me that you're using someone else's words, then the fourth step is paraphrasing. Now you can paraphrase that idea, all right? You have to explain the idea. You have to make clear that you understand that. And finally, the fifth step is the short conclusion for that body paragraph. Okay, so in total, we have 5 steps, and those 5 steps are obligatory now for the 2 body paragraphs, all right? One, that is topic sentence, introduction of the evidence, insertion of the evidence, paraphrasing that evidence, and conclusion of the body paragraph, right? You do that 2 times because you have 2 body paragraphs. And finally, the conclusion has 3 steps. You know that. It's going to be first, the restating, right? Restating the thesis statements. You have to tell me your main idea in different words. Second, you need to give me a short summary of your body paragraphs. Of course, you don't need to mention your citation. You don't need to paraphrase again. No, just tell me what you talked about in those 2 paragraphs. That's the second part. And finally, a strong conclusion that can be something interesting to say, or as I advise, right, to do, you can write, it could be a sentence that is going to be in the form of a question, in the sense, if you remember embedded questions, right, you can use embedded questions. An embedded question is a question inside, right, another question or a statement. So you can do something like that, or in the way you want, and it's more comfortable with you, all right? You can tell something that is going to make the reader reflect, right? How he or she may continue with that research, or where to go, right? From that point. You're telling me something interesting. Now what, right? Where we should go? That is the last part of the conclusion. You should give like an idea, or you should make the reader think about the possibility of continuing working on those kind of essays, or doing something that is related somehow. That's it, okay? I repeated that once again, because again, some people had problems with that structure, but it's really important that you can follow it now. And that's it. All right, again, spelling, punctuation, transitional words and phrases, the essay structure, tips for writing and vocabulary, and number of words. Those are going to be the criteria that I'm going to be evaluating. And that's it. I think it's clear and now, right? It's the second time that we are covering this, just in case. Now we can go to the lesson itself. We already covered the first steps, right? Use active voice, right? The usage of active voice. You know, many times, I'm saying this again, passive voice is more formal, but in the case of persuasive essays, it's good to use active voice because it's stronger. We covered this, we know this. Use literal and concrete language. Now, this is something that you were asking me, right? So what is to use literal and concrete language? It's only not to use metaphors, all right? And not to be vague in terms of using the language. It means you're not going to say, I am great at a variety of things, right? You're not going to say, a healthy diet is good because of many reasons, right? That's the thing. You don't have to say that. You have to say, a healthy diet, right, is good for, I don't know, right? For living longer, for I don't know, keeping yourself more energetic, for I don't know, be more resilient and resistant when you get sick, right? I don't know, many other reasons that you can say. So instead of saying, right, that idea, a healthy diet is good because of many reasons, that is vague. You have to be concrete and you have to be explicit, right? You're going to say a healthy diet is good because of this and that. Okay, that's the important point over here. And secondly, don't use metaphors. Okay, be concrete. Say what you want to say. Don't say it differently in the sense of don't use metaphors. Just go straight to the point. In that sense is step two. Now, I'm remarking this because I remember and I said, right, I agree with you with apocryphal, right? And flabbergasted. And I said, right, it's okay. So for example, if for you or if for someone else, this is going to be confusing because I remember that once, right, one guy that is from the US, right, the whole life over there, read this word and he said, I've never heard of this word. Okay, so this is going to be confusing for people that are even from the US. Of course, it's interesting that you can use some words and so on, right? That's great. I said that to Melissa, right? Use other words, try to look for synonyms, try to look for interesting words that you can show, right? So that the reader is going to say, okay, this guy knows, right, how to write and knows how to use these big words. But if that's going to create confusion only, don't do it. That's why I'm saying these two words, right, apocryphal, flabbergasted, you can take them out, all right? You can drop off those words. But again, this is not because of the second step, because these are not metaphors. This is not vague language. This is just complex language, or sometimes even language that it was used more, right, in the past than before, or in a very, very specific context. But again, it's not part of step two. It will be part of step two if it was something not clear, right? Again, saying things like, it's good because of many things, that example, right? For example, this can be marked, all right, due to the fact that they can think of many possible solutions. But what are those solutions? This is vague, for example, right? Because we are not being concrete, we are being vague, and we're not saying what those possible solutions are. This is part of step two, right? Of many possible solutions. This is not, but again, if it creates confusion, it's also a good idea to just leave that aside and keep working with what you have, with what you know how to use, and with something that is not going to create confusion in the reader for two things, because perhaps the word is too complex, too complicated to use, and you're not going to know how to use it appropriately, all right? Or simply because it can be said in a simple way and in a formal way, but not that complex, and that's more than enough. All right, just think of that, think of the options. But again, I wanted to mention this again, because yes, it's good that you can use other words, different words, interesting words, as long as you know how to do it, as long as they are not going to create confusion. But again, this is not metaphor, this is not vague. Let's just remember that. So it's not going to be part of step two. My only advice is the thing that I already mentioned, all right? Be concise. Again, we saw this, remember? This, for example, this is a very long sentence, right? More than 3 line, almost 4 line sentence. We should avoid this. You told me that yes, but it's important everything that we're saying over here. Yes, it is. But sometimes we can divide that into ideas. First, we can give the characteristics of the people we're talking about. And secondly, we could give more information about that group of people. Just because sometimes it can be better than merging or mixing the two ideas. Because this is good, again, grammatically speaking, this is not incorrect, just in the sense of not creating confusion on the reader, because at one point we can get lost over here and we don't know, for example, what this verb is talking about, what the subject is, and so on and so forth. We already also mentioned that one, be concise. You can say maximum in 2 lines, right? One sentence of 2 lines, let's say that's more than enough. The placement of descriptive words. In this case, the second one is the one that we want to use, right? Why? Because again, if we're going to have a long sentence, let's say even 2-line sentences are accepted, but even 2-line sentences are long, all right? It's also long. And if you place one of the ideas at the end of that sentence, it's going to be too far from the subject, from the main verb, right? So a good idea is to use that, all right? That the description, that phrase that is going to mention either place, is going to mention time, is going to mention manner, perhaps. So instead of using that at the end, you can use it at the beginning. In that way, it's close to the subject and it's close to the verb. But again, remember, right? This is like an introductory phrase. So you have to use commas when you use parts of the sentence that, let's say, don't belong there, all right? Parts of the sentence that don't belong there. And this is the last thing that we covered, abbreviations and contractions. Simply, all right, don't use them. That's the only thing. If we want to be very formal, it's a good idea, all right, not to use abbreviations and not to use contractions. Just say it the way it is, and that's it, right? It can be informal if you use contractions. And that's the last part. I think there's, or it's clear. Then let's begin now with the next part. We have repetition. You also mentioned this because I already talked about this as well, right? As an introduction, but you already took this into account. So we do want to, right, rehash your points and support them in different ways, right? However, you do not want to repeat the same point over and over again using different language, right? If several of your sentences are saying the same thing, right, it will seem as thought you were not capable of coming up with more material to write about. So it's what I was saying. If you are going to use the idea of important many times, let's not use the word important all those times, right? The first time it could be important, but the second time is going to be vital. The third time is going to be crucial. The next time is going to be a different word. So that's why we're going to be using synonyms, okay? Repeating the same words in your writing. This is what we're saying. Take care, right, not to use the same adjective in every paragraph to describe yourself or your situation, right? If necessary, feel free to use, or yes, to use the thesaurus. That's like a dictionary, right? The English language has more words than any other living language. Use them. And yes, that's right. So it's a good idea. Well, even right now, you don't need this specific, right, dictionary, the thesaurus. You can go to Google and you can go to Oxford, Cambridge if you want. Those are good web pages in which you can find specific words. Look for synonyms, and that's it. Okay, and that's it. I think also this is clear because you already work with this, if I'm not wrong. You were telling me that we use nouns, for example, skills. Yes, we can look different words something similar to skills, we have to be careful sometimes because they are going to say that ability or abilities is going to be a synonym, but sometimes ability is something different. So if your sentence is not working, all right, on the concept of skills, and you're not talking about the difference between those, then it's no problem, right, if you use them as synonyms. But if you're being very, very specific on that, be careful because they mean something different, right? An ability and a skill. And here, right, knowledge. But mainly, these are, for example, once again, knowledge and skills are nouns. Yes, it's important not to repeat nouns, but mainly what we use more, we can repeat a lot, is the usage of adjectives. All right, adjectives like it is important, right? It is useful. Anything that is describing an object or a person, right, is going to be an adjective, and we usually use a lot of those. That's why we should look, all right, for options in terms of adjectives. That is it. Here, for example, right, let's see, wide, this is an adjective, all right, a wide variety. But we are going to see that in this case, we're not using a lot of these adjectives. It is better. We have broad also over there. Here, for example, academic is working as a subject. So I think we are also using academic in many places. So you can look for a synonym of academic. And also subjects, but again, this is a noun. So try to identify which are the adjectives that are being used, and if they are being repeated, right, try to change. And again, this is for your essay usually. And as you're going to be writing your essay from the beginning, you're not going to be checking like this, right? It's done, perhaps at the end, but be sure if you already work with one adjective, try to use a different adjective next time. That's it. Then, in terms of repetition, I think that's it. Just give the ideas in different ways, because in the first part, we're talking about ideas. So you can restate the idea. You can even paraphrase your own idea, right? That's the logic behind this avoiding repetition. Avoiding the same ideas, right? And that are said in the same way, and avoiding the same words, all right? So ideas and words. Then I told you this is going to be very important. Step 7. It's simple, all right? It's better if you only use positive, all right, or yes, sentences in the positive form, or as we say it, statements, right, in the affirmative form as well. It means that we're going to avoid the use of are not, is not, am not, or do not, does not, will not. Why? Because again, it's stronger when you say something in an affirmative way. According to this, again, I'm using material, I've been collecting material that universities are giving us advice, okay, for applicants that want to write essays to get into some universities, all right, to enter some universities. That's why I think this is very important, because this is what they check over there. It means that this is part of academic writing. If you want to be accepted, all right, and enter a specific university, it's important to take this into account. And this applies, of course, to any academic writing that you can think of. It includes essays in general, and these, of course, argumentative or persuasive essays. So let's read a little bit. I'm going to make this bigger. Now I'm going to get tired. I'm the only one reading. So it says, right, this will make your language seem stronger, right, as opposed to non-committal and hesitant. If you use the word not, right, it must only be in cases of clear denial and antithesis. And take a look right at these examples. So we do not, even here, right, this is formal because we are not contracting. We don't say we don't. Our I, sorry, I do not usually arrive late, right? I do not usually arrive late. Instead of that, we can say, I am usually on time. All right, it goes straight to the point, and it mentions something more important, that is being on time. He did not, right? He did not think that going to the baseball game would be a good use of time. He thought that attending to a baseball game would be a waste of time. So it's the same idea, but instead of using negative, right, the negative form in the second idea, what we're doing is using an interesting, all right, a very interesting word, that is waste of time. Because if you say, I do not think that it's going to be, right, a good use of time, then what you think is that it is a waste of time, right? It's not going to be a good use of time, then it is a waste of time. So don't say the first one, say the second one. It's better, right? In each case, the second sentence, right, is stronger. In the second pair of sentences, the idea did not think, it's ambiguous, right? Since it implies that he was not thinking about the baseball game at all. Yes. Also, when you use negative sentences, the negative sentence applies to all your idea. Whereas if you use a negative word, all right, a word that implies something negative, is only going to be for a specific part of your sentence, not for the whole sentence. That's also one benefit. So therefore, right, do not put in a negative form anything that can easily be written in a positive or in the positive form. Negative form, right, ambiguity is one of those reasons, or one of the reasons, that singular words exist to express negative phrases. Instead of not honest, right, instead of saying, I am not honest, right, we have distrusted, all right? You can say, I am dishonest or distrusted. Dig your brain right for similar words before committing to a non-committal sentence. So that's why the next presentation is going to be about these words. I'm going to show you words with some prefixes like non and, all right, that are going to help you change your word to a negative form, but without changing your sentence to the negative form, only the word. And that's going to be better. In that way, and in that following that logic, you do not use the negative form once again of the sentence. Now, actually, now that we're here and we're working this, I think this is going to be useful for you. And to know this for Monday is going to be better. Instead of taking all of this information for Monday only, I'm going to show you actually those words. This is part of the next lesson, but actually let's work together, all right? Let's work with the two lessons at the same time. This presentation is divided into two parts. The first part is for those words with some prefixes, and the second part is for some, well, a list of many words that are synonyms of very common words that you use in essays. And that's why this is going to be used for repetition. No, actually, now that we talked about repetition, we can mention this first, all right? It's a synonyms. It's in this order because it's for you to take this into account. For example, I'm not going to give you, right, all of them, but let's say amazing, beautiful, right? Amazing, beautiful. These are very common, let's say, adjectives that we use. So instead of amazing, the second time can be incredible, fantastic, fabulous, right? Astonishing, extraordinary. Beautiful, right? Can be gorgeous, ravishing, dazzling, right? Exquisite, stunning. And you have other words. Here, calm, it's a word that we use a lot. This is, in this case, a verb, right? Dangerous can be, in many contexts for essays, you use dangerous. Decide, and describe. I think those ones, all right? Come, dangerous, decide, and describe. So come, approach and arrive. Approach is a really interesting word that you can use. All right, approach. Then you have dangerous, right? Hazardous, risky, precarious. Then you have decide, all right? Determine, settle, all right? To determine or determine, all right? Both, and to settle. I think we also covered this, right? To settle down. And describe, which is going to be to portray or characterize. With S, in this case, this tends to be British, all right? To characterize something with Z, it's going to be American. So you can change that one. S or Z are going to be okay. One is going to be British and the other one is going to be American, all right? But it's okay. And you have other words, you have other synonyms. Then here, difference, this is interesting, you may use a lot. Explain, of course. I think that's it. Those are the most important ones. Famous, perhaps, all right? So difference, right? Disagreement, inequity, right? And this is going to be dissimilarity, right? Dissimilarity. So these are interesting words. Disagreement, inequity, right? And dissimilarity. Explain, elaborate, right? Interpret. Then you have a famous, right? Well-known. This is very common as well, right? Famous, well-known, renowned, right? Eminent, right? And illustrious. That's it in those terms. Then, of course, get. We use a lot of these words. Have, get, all right, do. I think those ones. Yes, have, get, do. Those are the three words that we use a lot in writing. So instead of have, so we have here actually. That's good. So we have get and do. Let's take a look at these two. A lot and great a lot. So I think we have really interesting words over here. And also idea. These are words that we use a lot. Funny perhaps in very specific situations, the other words as well. But let's take a look at get. You know that get may mean many things. So instead of get, but this is the primary meaning, because you know that get may mean arrive, understand, right, serve. Get could have many meanings, but here this is the primary meaning of get. So instead of get in the primary meaning, you can use acquire, right? Acquire, obtain, secure, procure, and gather, right? Instead of get. Acquire, obtain, secure, procure, and gather. Of course, some of those words are going to be better for certain contexts. So you can look for the meaning of those words, but they are considered synonyms. Then you have good. Of course, some of these, let's say, adjectives are stronger, but it doesn't matter because it's also positive as good. So excellent, fine, right? Wonderful, superior, gracious, right? Superb, splendid, genuine, right? Sterling, and top-notch. Great as well, worthy, something worthy. Of course, I would say that this is a little bit different, but it can be inside this category. But worthy, distinguished, right? Grand, considerable, and mighty. This is interesting, mighty. And have, this is also very important, right? Possess, own, and acquire as well as get. So it's better if you use these words instead of get, instead of have, because have and get again are used too much, all right, are overly used. And idea, thought, concept, notion, all right? That's it. Then we have, this is right, important, interesting. Also, we use these two words a lot. Important, interesting. Make also, it's used a lot. Not as much as get and have and do, but make is also used a lot. And these two, new and old, these are interesting. So important, right? Necessary in the sense of very important, vital, critical, right? Indispensable, valuable, essential, right? Famous, notable. Interesting, it's going to be fascinating, engaging, right? Spirit, intriguing, right? Gripping, right? Enthralling, and captivating. Captivating. This is really interesting, I think. This captivating, engaging, these are really interesting words to use instead of interesting, right? Engaging and captivating. Then you have make, create, of course, right? Create, produce, these are the two common synonyms, create, produce, but also originate, invent, construct, right? To manufacture, produce again, right? As I mentioned before, and compose. And finally, the two, new and old, new, unique, modern, right? Current and recent. Try to use these more than actual. Sometimes you say actual, right? It's better, unique, modern, current. Current, that's really good. Recent and old, feeble, ancient, right? Aged, veteran, mature, primitive, right? And stale, old. And finally, we have these words. Here, of course, tell, right? We have to, let me see, we have say over here. No, all right. But tell, it's weird that we don't have say, but again, instead of using say, and we use tell even more in essays, this one and use, tell and use. So it's going to be disclose, reveal, exposed, right? Narrate, inform, and divulge. And use is going to be employ, right? Utilize, exhaust, and spend. Okay, so this is really interesting. You have a lot of options over here, a lot of words that you can use, right? Instead of those ones. And what's the purpose of giving you these words? Is for you to avoid repetition. So it's mainly adjectives, as you were able to see. We have a lot of adjectives, but also verbs. Why? Because we have a lot of verbs that we use a lot, as the ones I mentioned: get, have, do, make, tell, say, right? Those verbs are overly used, as I said. So instead of using those verbs, you have other options over there. Try to use only ones, all right? That is the thing. If we follow these tips over here, all right, if we follow these tips over here, and mainly I'm talking about these tips, right? Sorry, where's the one with repetition? This one, right? Steps 6 and 7, I think, are very, very important. All of them are great to take into account, but steps 6 and 7 are very special in the sense of this is going to help, this is going to really help, right? Improving your writing a lot, because this is something that almost in all international tests and in all application essays, right, they take into account. Repetition and affirmative statements. Now we're going to go to this one, right? We covered the vocabulary, important synonyms for repetition, right? For avoiding repetition. Now we're going to go up and we're going to take a look at these prefixes so that we can also use other words and to avoid using negative sentences, negative statements, negative questions. Instead of that, you're going to write affirmative, right, statements with a word that gives an idea of something negative inside, but it's not going to affect the whole idea. That is the benefit, and also it keeps the idea stronger. So DI, right, the pronunciation is going to vary according to the word you have after that. So it's almost always used before a verb or a word formed, right, from that verb. It means to reverse the verb's action. This is really important. The meaning of this prefix is going to be to reverse the verb's action, right? For example, Hydrate, right, is to fill your body with water, let's say. And dehydrate is to do the opposite, right? To reverse that process. So your water is going to lose water, dehydrate. Regulate, right, is the action of regulating things, right? Putting things into a parameter order, and to deregulate is going to be the opposite, right? Taking things out of that parameter and causing the opposite. Toxify, right? Of course, to fill with toxins, and detoxify is going to be to eliminate, right? To get rid of those toxins. It can have other meanings besides, right, making a verb negative. Example, it means down, decline, decrease, depression. In that sense, it's not like the same as this one, the reverse, but it's something that shows that it's going down, right? Declining, right, is going down, decreasing is going down, and depression is going down. So that is the E, all right? And we have some examples. Deactivate, right? Decode, decommission, decompose, deconstruct, right? Decontaminate, deflate, deflect, etc., etc. All right. Those are some examples. Again, this is for you on Google Classroom. Then we have DIS, right? This. Mainly, this is going to be pronounced as this. It can be used, right, with verbs, nouns, and adjectives. So you have a lot more options. This, the was only for verbs or words that come from that verb. But this is going to be for verbs, nouns, adjectives, or adverbs, even adverbs, right? It also has other meanings besides making the words negative. So the only purpose of these words, right, this, is making the word negative. That's it. So this is an adjective, for example, right? Affected. So this is disaffected. Agree, right? Instead of say I do not agree with you, right? Don't say I don't agree with you. You say I disagree with you. I disagree. Disagreeable, this is going to be more of an adjective, right? Disagreement, that's going to be more of a noun, right? We had a disagreement, a noun. Disbelief, noun, right? Disbelief. Dishonor, verb or noun. Dishonored or dishonorable, adjective. Disinfect, right? Verb. Disinfected or disinfection. Disinfected is going to be more of an adjective, and disinfection is going to be more of a noun, right? Disinherit, and so on and so forth. So again, try to use some words that you can use here. Instead of using some negative ideas, use these words. For example, I think some important words here are disagree, all right? Displease, this is really interesting. I think those, and distrust or distrustful. Those words can be really interesting. Disproportionate also could be. I confuse that word. Perhaps it's not used as much, but the ones I mentioned, yes, they are. All right, disagree, displease, distrust. Right, then you have something that comes from, right, impossible, in, or er, right? This is going to be er. So we have I am, in, and ir. So in, and ear, I'm reading that the way it's going to be used in words, are usually used for nouns, right? Adjectives and other adverbs, right? Formed from them. They all mean not and the word, right? Again, as the previous one, it only gives the negative idea, but of course you don't write this not. That's the benefit. So examples, here we're going to divide into groups. Here, I'm going to try to mention, and you know a lot of those. This is, I think, the most common prefix. So illegal, right? Illogical, immature, impatient, imperfect, impossible, imprecise. A lot of these words are very well known, right? Inappropriate, incapable, incoherent, incompatible, right? Incomplete, inflexible, insignificant, sufficient, invalid, invisible, involuntary, irrelevant, irrational, irreparable, right? Irresistible, irresponsible, irreversible, etc. So you have a lot of interesting words in this category. These are adjectives. So, right, instead of saying that's not legal, that is illegal, right? That's not perfect, no, that's imperfect. That's not possible, that's impossible. And so on and so forth. We understand that clearly. Nouns, the same. Many of these words are going to be similar to the adjectives, but these are going to be used as nouns, right? Impatient with T is the adjective. Impatience is the noun. Immaturity, right? Imperfection, impossibility, imprecision. So actually you're going to find the same words, but they are the nouns this time. Okay, it's also very important because you were able to see in the essay, we use a lot of nouns that are repeated. To avoid that, and also to avoid the use of negative sentences, use these words, all right? That's the only purpose that we have over there. That's nouns, yes. Then we have, right, MIS, miss. It's going to be used, again, in the same way. We have something interesting here in the terms of the sense and the meaning of this word, this prefix. So is from Old English, right, or in some words from French. It's used with verbs, right, and adjectives and adverbs made from them, right, as well as nouns. It means bad. So this is a little bit different. It's not only adding not a negative thing. No, in this case, it means bad, wrong, or wrongly. That is interesting, all right? So you have many options here. Misconduct, right? Misdiagnose, misinformation. That's really, really important. Okay, I'm finding the ones that you can use a lot. Misinformation, right? Misinterpreted, misinterpretation, mislead. That is very, very important. I think you can use this word a lot if you understand how to use it. All right, to mislead something, it's going to be very important. Misleading, right? Misspelling, a mistake, of course, right? This is very, very common. Misspelled, mistaken, right? And you have misunderstanding, misunderstood. So it means, once again, that it was done, right, in a bad way, in a wrong way, wrongly. Okay, let's have that in mind, please. Now give me a second. All right, sorry. So I was saying, right, this word has something different, which is the meaning. It's not only negative in the sense of not in this, right? For example, we have these words over here, right? It means immature is not mature, right? That's it. Impossible is not possible, and that's it, all right? But here, it's more than just not. It means bad, wrong, wrongly. So this right, misinformation is not only not information, right? Of course not. It means that the information was given in the wrong way or wrongly, that you interpret something in the wrong way, in the bad way, right? That is the meaning here, right? It's something that was done in the wrong way, not only not, but also this wrongly. And that's important to take into account for these words. Again, the most important words that we have over here are going to be misconduct, misinformation, or misinformed, or misinformed. Of course, this is a verb. This can be adjective as well. This can be noun. Misinterpretation, misinterpreted, right, or to misinterpret. That's also very important. Mislead, misleading, then misspelling, a mistake, mistaken, right, mistrust, misunderstand, right, to understand in a bad way, to understand wrongly, right? No, that's not what I meant, right? I meant something different. You misunderstood me, right? That's the special thing with this prefix. Then we have none. Of course, it means only that not or the lack of something, like something is missing with none. And in that way, let me make you bigger, right? Non-conformist, lack of being conformist. Non-conformity, right? Non-existence and nonsense, right? You have the same, but now with adjectives. That's it, all right? Non-stop here. Some interesting words could be nonsense, all right? Non-conformity, I think it's also very interesting. Non-existent, that can be used a lot. And I think those ones, of course, the other ones non-stop as well. The other ones, of course, can be used, but I'm mentioning the ones that you can take into account according to the words you use. Now we have the un, right? An, sometimes an, is the most common negative prefix, right, in English. So this is the most common. Right? If in doubt, it's the best one to try. So in many cases, you can use many of these prefixes. It's better if you use the ones that you're seeing in the examples. But if you are in doubt, again, use an, right? An is the negative prefix even for many words from Latin roots. We have some examples, right? Unable, right? Unable. Instead of saying, I am not able to do it, right? I'm unable to do it. Use that one, don't use negative. And also you're using kind of a different word, right? Unaffected. It says, right? Here you have the difference. Unaffected is going to be not affected at all, right? Disaffected means affected badly, wrongly, right? In a bad way. And that's the difference. Sometimes we have differences between these prefixes. Unafraid, right? Unaltered. I'm seeing the ones that you can use. Unavailable. Uncertain. That's really, really interesting, right? Uncertain, unclear, unconventional, right? Unfriendly, all right. Unknown, of course, that is very, very common, right? Unknown, unpleasant, unprofessional. Mm-hmm. And you have many others that you can use, actually. There is a lot. I'm just trying to choose the ones. Unwilling, that can be really interesting. But of course, unscheduled and so on. All of these words are really interesting and important. Here, the same, but we have nouns and adverbs, right? Unavailability, right? Uncertainty, unreality, right? Then you have in adverbs, you have a lot of adverbs, but you see the only difference is that we are adding this ly. For example, the last one I mentioned before, unwilling, right? Now it's going to be unwillingly, right? Not willing to do something. Uncertainly, right? Unpleasantly, unprofessionally, and so on and so forth. So this is a really interesting prefix also to take into account. Actually, all of them, right? That's why I'm showing you this. Why? Because I'm giving you the tools, right? I'm giving you the tools so that you can use these words, you can use the synonyms, these words, these prefixes to change your idea to negative without changing the whole sentence to negative, right? In that way, your sentence, your statement is strong. You're using interesting words, right? And it's going to be more formal. And that's it. Then we have the rest of the words, right? That are the synonyms that I already read. You know, I didn't, also here, right? I didn't read everything because you're not going to use all of them. I paid attention to the ones I believe you're going to be using, but you know that you can take a look at this. It's in Google, on Google Classroom, and you can try to see some other options that you may have. That's it. Yes, so those were steps 6 and 7. I think that's very important. I'm going to try to take a look at these again on Monday. Mainly on Monday, then I would like to do what I wanted to do today, which is trying to take a look at some specific doubts that you have. Okay, I'm going to show you these. We're going to take a look at some parts of something that you were writing, and you're going to ask me specific questions. Again, I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm not going to tell you this comma, change it to the semicolon or this period, right? But I'm going to tell you, your idea is not clear, right? Try to restate it or check the punctuation. Look, you have complete ideas. What do we use for that one? Okay, why? Because this is your final, right, essay, and I can give you some 8, but I cannot correct that immediately. It's not going to make sense in that way. So that's going to be the purpose, all right? Now today, I think I'm only going to finish mentioning these 3 steps that we have left. Actually 2, because we worked on this one, the 2. And I think we're going to finish here. Again, the class could be longer. It's usually longer because I check your, well, let's call them assignments, right? The in-class assignments, the in-class tasks that I give you. Now that you are not here, I was not able to do that. So I think I'm able to finish this before. So step 8, no punctuation marks outside quotations. This is very important. So technically, right, all punctuation marks have to be written, this is important, inside the quotes or the quotation marks. It means commas, semicolons, colons, periods, exclamation, and question marks. What a wonderful day. Exclamation mark inside the quotes. She said that, right? She said that. That's actually the quote, right? She said that. So the period inside the quotes. She said, I'm okay, comma, the comma inside, and this is what you're saying. This is not part of his words, right? These are your words. So I'm okay, comma, quotation mark, because this was his idea, now this is your idea, but we knew he was lying. So you know that you're going to use a fanboy. What do you know? What do you need for fanboys? Commas, right? So use the comma, but inside the quotation marks, and then use the fanboy. And that's it. Please remember this. This is very important. I'm making this bigger. I didn't mention this before because I told you, right? When I was checking your structures, I told you there are some things, some details. Please take a look at what you wrote before sending your essays, because I'm telling you, right, it's okay, it's good, it's very good, but in the sense of your ideas, of your structure, because that was the topic the last week. But as in this case, right, it's also something different, but I'm touching punctuation marks and quotations. It's worth mentioning this again. All right, so please, all these punctuation marks have to be written inside the quotes. That's it. And this is the last one. Again, I'm not evaluating this in the sense that, I don't know, exaggeration. Sometimes, for example, in the introduction, right, You can say things that are too much. You can say things in order to catch the reader's attention that are like obviously not true or are exaggerated. So don't do that. Just don't do that. But I'm not going to be evaluating this. But of course, you have to take this into account for your future essays. So it says, if you use an obvious exaggeration, your reader will be on guard, right? What does it mean? And begin to mistrust. We're using these words, mistrust everything you say, all right, including the rest of your self-reported, right, qualifications. You're trying to obtain and secure your reader's trust. Do not blow it, all right, by overstating your points. So again, be straight, go straight to the point, say what you want to say, don't use exaggerations over there. Hopefully these 9 points will help you, right, achieve a formal style in your college application essays. Again, I'm using this from that, right? I already mentioned these 3 times. Once you begin attending college, right, you will be expected to adhere, right, to this sort of a style throughout your academic and professional career. It means that in English, you should take this for granted, for sure. It means it has to be part of what you do, and it has to be something that you for sure are going to be using not only on these first essays that you're learning to write, but also in the future ones. And mostly if you're going to be studying in the US or any university that is going to give you the information in English, if you want to be good, right, academically speaking, professionally speaking, you should follow this kind of advice, let's say. And it says, right, and throughout your academic and professional career. So it is the best, right, to learn early. And that's what we're doing. That's it. Okay, that's it. The way to practice is going to be now for you to do that at home, right? Of course, you've always been working from home, but you're working on the final essay. So try to apply all this knowledge there, and actually not try to apply, right? You have to apply this time. This time I'm going to ask you to apply this because this is part of the criteria. If I show you, not the entire criteria again, don't worry. I'm not going to read everything again. Just this one over here, right? If you want to get the 20 points here, you need to apply all these tips, right? Active voice, concrete language, being concise, right placement of words, no abbreviations or contractions, no negative sentences, punctuation marks inside, right? The quotes, and we use the new vocabulary. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we're going to be using, well, I already closed that one, this, right? The words with prefixes instead of negative sentences. You're going to be using this new vocabulary. And of course, you're going to be using this vocabulary as well, which are synonyms. Instead of using amazing, important, get, have, etc., you're going to be using these synonyms. That's it. That's what I'm asking then. If you want to get these 20 points, these tips for writing and vocabulary, then what you should do is use all those tips, follow all those tips, right? Don't write negative sentences, don't repeat the same ideas in the same way, don't repeat the same words, the same nouns, the same adjectives, right? The same adverbs, use that differently, and that's it. If you don't follow one of those tips, let's say you are writing negative sentences, then you have only 15, not 20. 2, you are repeating words, you are using negative sentences, you only have 10. You are using passive voice and you are using negative sentences and repeating some words, right? 5 points. And if you are doing that and also you're not using the new vocabulary, let's say, only right 2.5 points, which is very little in comparison to the 20 points that you can get. So again, take a look at that just by yourselves. All right, on my side, I think that's it. Just be careful, and again, most of you, I think, have been doing a great job. You have 90 and above in terms of score. Why? Because actually you only need to follow this, right? You already received the corrections in terms of punctuation, so just try to take those into account, okay? Again, I'm being very strict over here because this is going to be very helpful in the long run. This is going to help you work these very, let's say, specific skills that you cannot acquire actually anywhere, right? For example, speaking, yes, you can practice speaking anywhere with anybody at the end. If you have friends in the US, you can practice speaking, okay? But writing and learning academic writing is not something that you're going to be learning anywhere, right? You need to take courses for this one. There is no other way to learn this. Of course, you can look for information on the internet, but at a certain point, you can get lost. But do it now that you have the background, right, of this with this course. You can still work, right, on extra information. Take a look. See that there are different rules for commas and periods sometimes in English, but these are the most accepted ones. But you can see other ways of doing that. And that's it, all right? Just, I'm telling you that so that you can keep working by yourselves. This was just the background or the main information that you can get to know about academic writing. But of course, it's an entire world as English is. Try to do it. That's it again on my side. I'm going to finish the class here again. I extended this as much as I could, giving you all the information was possible for me to give. And that's it. Work, please, work well with your essays. In case you have specific questions, let me know. Monday is going to be the last chance, right, of asking those questions. That's why also I have in mind that Monday is going to be a day to check specific things, not everything, and because of the reasons I mentioned, but details. And I'm going to try to mention some of the knowledge that I was sharing today with you. That's it. All right. Thanks for watching this video if you were able to watch it entirely. And well, see you Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.